Welcome, and thank you for joining for another whiskey review. Today, we're going to take a look at the Springbank 10 Palo Cortado. Forgive me.
It's one of those sherry casks we don't see a lot of, right, Mike?
No, we don't. And I don't speak Spanish. So this is the new 10-year, what I would say, sherry cask or wine cask series from the Springbank now?
Yeah, so they're doing a sherry series. They've already announced, I think, 5 releases, 6 releases, something like that. So each one of these starts off in a bourbon cask, and then they finish it for a number of years. This one, I believe, is 4 years in the sherry cask. We're going to refer to it as a sherry cask going forward because we are terrible at Spanish.
The Cortado. I'm pretty confident with that part of the...
It's Palo, I know that.
Palo Cortado. Okay, so if you think it's Palo, I think it's Cortado.
All right, well, I'll go with it.
Forgive me, I do have some...
This is part of what I like to refer to as the Springbank. How dumb are you? Will you still buy our whiskey when we charge you $200 for a 10-year-old series?
55% ABV, natural color, unchill filtered, from the most popular distillery in the world. Niche Scotch whiskey, Dustin.
Most popular whiskey distillery among people who actually drink whiskey.
Yes. If you're a whiskey snob, this is your snob.
This is it.
This is it. It's a light sherry, or it's a light wine influence.
Yeah,
Dustin.
so I've had a couple things. I think one of our buddies sent us, and Aaron finished in this sherry cask that I got to enjoy.
Palo Cortado.
I just don't know what, I still haven't figured out if I like this stuff. I think Keith even brought us one. It's an earthy, funky, kind of strange sherry cask.
Yeah, this is very working in the yard type of sherry. You know what I mean? Face to the dirt.
Yeah.
You know, nose to the ground.
Yeah.
This type of sherry always reminds me of football practice in August, like the early football practices where you're just doing calisthenics in the morning, got little jiggers in the grass and stuff like that, and you're just like, you know what? It's just worth it.
To me, it's earthy. It's kind of funky. It doesn't do a lot, especially on the nose. I've never thought these nosed well, and this is no exception.
No, it's very light. It's given a very mild influence, but a little bit of red fruit here, a little bit of soft 5 days past bad strawberry.
Yeah, I will say the peat level here comes off a little higher than like a Springbank 10 usually does. It comes off a little more salty as well, and I think actually I've noticed that the Palo Cortado sherry cask sometimes maybe give me a bit of a saline note. I don't know why.
I did pick up a little bit more salinity in this one than I normally do with these wine casks, young Springbanks.
Otherwise, you got your sugar cookies, you got your Springbank malt. I mean, it's pretty typical 10-year Springbank. Again, this is a 10-year-old whiskey. It's not super complex in that sense. That said, I think, if you really are a fan of this sherry style, I think you probably get a lot more than we're picking up here. Because I don't know that I really appreciate what this wine does, because it's not my thing.
Yeah, well, it adds subtle flavor to it. I mean, there are some nice red flavors to this. I would say, I mentioned like an older strawberry. What I mean by that is just not a very tart strawberry. Aside from that, I would, normally this is a bad note when I say crab apple, but this is a sugary crab apple. Mm-hmm. Almost comes off like a highly sweet church wine-ish.
Yes, I agree. A little bit more earthy, a little bit of a hay note kind of comes through here.
That's all the malt coming back. And,
having had this before, Mike, I'm going to just jump right to the palate because the nose isn't really something I feel like needs a lot of discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're getting to the majority of it, but being someone who was raised Catholic in the late 70s and early 80s as a young boy who was forced to take communion, there is a very going to communion style of wine to this.
Now, with that said, while I am a little unimpressed by the nose, the palate is punchy. It's full flavor, whereas the nose is kind of soft and subtle. It's very sweet, classic Springbank. The sugar cookies there. Again, I keep bringing up. It's a little sweeter. It's a little more peaty, a little more salty. And Mike, I'm struggling to pick it up right now, so I'm going off of my notes from prior experiences because I think I'm missing it from kind of the order of whiskeys we drank today. But there is a little subtle mint note that came through.
Okay. Which
I've never gotten on a Springbank that I can think of. And even now I'm picking up just sort of like that menthol slight note on the back of on the front of my tongue as the finish is going. That's really where I'm picking up. And then it's happening a little between there and the mid-tongue.
Sugary redness. Sugary strawberry meets Springbank 10. I still say my original thought was it's just a tad bit like watered down sort of red sherry. Good peat, a little bit of salinity. Solid. I mean, I think the red notes come off a little bit more sugary and candied than they do on the nose, but a pretty similar experience. It's a little more exciting on the palate than it is the nose, but
There's more for sure. I will say this, now that I've added a little drop of water. We talk about red notes, but I don't think this is really a red sherry. It's, as you can see from the color, it's lighter. Again, I've never had this particular type of sherry like in its native state, but I do get more of a grape note now that I've added water. It's come out a little bit more. It's now distinctly slightly grapey. Again, it's kind of boring on the nose. Earthy hay with that, classic Springbank backing.
yeah, I wouldn't go as far as anything purple dusting because again, I think it comes off more red, more crab apple sweetness with this style of sherry cask. But I can see somebody actually making that jump. But I will say about this, it is an overly sugared crab apple, as I mentioned before.
Yeah. Water again, a little more of the grape, but again, I keep thinking more white grape. But yet, crab apple is not a bad note there. It's not a note I think of very often, but yeah, it's I see where you're going there. Yeah, I'm a little bit. Again, it's bringing Springbank in more earthy notes. There's a little more peat. The mint kind of stepped away a little bit here for me now with the water.
I didn't get a lot of mint ever, but
like I said, if we had this as the first drink of the day, I think you'd pick up a little bit more. It's a subtlety, but just slight difference. I mean, again, I'm kind of coming back to this is cask strength Springbank 10 with a different wine cask, and it's not doing enough for me that really justifies any kind of collecting, chasing. I was able to get this without too much effort, Mike.
I was pumped too.
Yeah, I was excited because I was thinking I might miss it. I broke my foot a few weeks back, and real subtle break, but I spent like 3-4 weeks just not walking at all, and I was like, I know Springbank's coming out. I better go hunt.
You went hobbled over there and got your Springbank tested.
Yeah, the woman saw me limping over there, asking if, hey, do you happen to have that? And she was like, let me look it up, and I found out she actually broke her foot like the same time I did, and she's like, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to sell this or not. And I was like, well, for me, it works out.
I did that day, Dustin. I did that day. All right, buddy. Whiskey score time on this one. Allow me to go first.
Yeah, go for it.
When you said you wouldn't be buying any backups with this, even if they're available to you, it sent shivers down my spine. Because I know how much of a fanboy you are of this distillery. As I mentioned before in other ones, if you were stabbed by Cersei Lannister, you would bleed Springbank gold. I'm at 86 out of 100, and that's a brutal low score to give a Springbank that is such a well sought after and highly anticipated whiskey. But I think I'm being kind of an 86.
Well, I'll tell you this, Mike. If I were scoring this based on price, I'd give it a 70. Because $200 for this is an absolute joke. Now, that said, okay, let's ignore that. I mean, we always ignore price. I give it an 85. I think this is good whiskey, but
okay, good.
It really just doesn't do anything like special for me, and I'm just appalled by the pricing. Now, I know part of that's North America pricing, it's the distributors and all that.
Sure.
This is not premium Springbank. This really shouldn't sell for more than whatever the cost of watering down Springbank 10 is. They just did not add enough value. And, if you're a big fan of these Palo Cortado casks, apologies. Maybe this really is your style, but for me, I enjoy this. I'm glad I have it. It's different, but I'm sorry. 85.
I am happy you did not buy this bottle for me. I will not be purchasing one of these bottles at $200 or any dollars.
Yeah.
And as someone with a child on the way, I will not be naming my dollar Palo or Cortado after this experience.
I hope that was not on the list ahead of time.
Anyway, those are our thoughts on this particular whiskey. If you guys had a chance to try this one, let us know what you guys think. Dustin, until next time, what do we wish the folks?
Happy better value drinking.
Next time.